Hello, everyone, and welcome to Diversity Matters, where we spotlight the people and organizations driving real change through inclusion, innovation, and impact. I'm your host, Teresa Palacios Smith, and as we celebrate Women's History Month, we recognize the women who didn't wait for permission, who didn't wait for the perfect moment, and who chose to build, create, and lead even when the path didn't exist yet. Because here's the truth: stories don't just reflect the world, they have the power to change it. And today's guest is living proof of that. I am honored to welcome Jacqueline Ruiz, a visionary leader, international speaker, author, pilot, museum curator, and the publisher behind Latinas in Real Estate, helping bring powerful stories and voices to life across our industry. Jackie has built an extraordinary global platform dedicated to elevating voices, publishing hundreds of authors across 34 countries, and creating one of the largest collections of Latina stories in the world. Her journey is one of resilience, urgency, courage, and purpose-driven action. And today we're going to be talking about what it really means to lead, create impact, and use your story to open doors for others. Welcome, Jackie, to Diversity Matters. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. And like my daughter says, my heart is beeping with happiness to be here.
I'm so happy too. So I know that you and I met when I was the MC recently at an event in Chicago with the Latinas in Real Estate volume. Was it volume four?
Volume 3.
Volume three.
Mm.
And there I was the first time I had a chance to meet you in person. I was so honored to be involved with that event. But one of the things that you've built so well is a global platform centered around storytelling and really bringing all the others' voices to the forefront. So tell me, let's start at the beginning. What first inspired you to start this work, and what was the moment you knew this was your purpose?
You know what? I oftentimes say that sometimes you find a mission, and sometimes the mission finds you. So when that happens, do you surrender? Do you respond to it? Or do you ignore it? And for me, it has been a series of progressive experiences in my life. But I remember the first time I fell in love with a book, and that was when I was about 5 years old. My mom had all these amazing books around the house from Napoleon Hill, from Zig Ziglar, from, Dale Carnegie. And these books started shaping the way that I thought. These books started creating a new beautiful reality as I listened and read and embodied the stories that I was, reading in these books. I was mesmerized, as a little girl, looking at the world with all kinds of possibility, looking at the world with curiosity, right? I wanted to know more. I wanted to inquire more about what creates a life of success and what makes someone's legacy thrive beyond, the years that you're on this earth. I mean, these are questions that I was asking myself early on. And when I was 21 years old, I heard the word that nobody wants to hear. I heard the word cancer. And then when I was 23, I heard the word again in a different part of my body that really provoked an activation of a sense of urgency to serve. And that's really what got me from being a reader to being a writer. Because now it was all about encapsulating my legacy. It was about knowing that if I died, because I saw death pretty close the second time, my children would know who I was. So this yearning of legacy building, and my German teacher, when I was 16, he's like, writing is an extension of your soul. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that sounds so beautiful. But it didn't make a lot of sense to me until I was 21 when I hear this word. And then when I was 23, um, started writing on my first book, just with the intention of having my children read about me when I died. And just knowing that I can have a permanent record in the Library of Congress. And little did I know that that one book that I published at 26 years old from that 20, experience at 23, publish it at 26, it was going to unleash the magic of storytelling around the world and creating a platform that has helped hundreds of people in 34 countries. And you know what? I have 38 of my own books, and I will continue to write and extend my soul as long as I live. Thanks to that teacher.
Oh my God, that is so powerful. Jackie, I am just in awe, number one, that you were that young, realizing that at that time, the power of reading and the thought and the creativity that you were able to come from, you know, being inside, right? The mind of a book, right? Of the author
Mhm.
and what they were thinking about. And most of all, that at such a young age were hit with such a catastrophic disease that it made you realize that your legacy needed to be one that was not just about the, cancer, that it was more than that. So extremely powerful. Now, I know that you talked about, and when you pause and really take everything in, you've you've built so far because you are just in your 40s, right?
Mhm.
What would you say is what are you most proud of?
You know what? I'm proud of a lot of things. And oftentimes I don't go around thinking, oh, I'm a pilot, I'm a 38-time author, I'm a publisher around the world. Like, I don't think about those things. What I think about is how can I today help someone's dream land? Because landing is mandatory. I always say that. But what I'm very proud of is my children. I mean, I always tell my son, he was my first child and the one that inspired me to become an entrepreneur at the age of 23. And he is as old as my first company. He's almost 20 years old. And my daughter, on the other hand, she was really the impetus because she was born and in 2019 in December, and I published my first book in June 2010. So I always tell her, you were the inspiration to publish my first book. So both of them know that, and I'm so proud of them. And knowing that I was told at some point that I was not going to be able to have children, I mean, they're really my miracles. And seeing them grow and seeing them evolve and seeing how I could be a multimillionaire, I could be a successful entrepreneur, I could still be a mom and bring the kids with me. I mean, my daughter has been part of, my nonprofit organization since its inception. When I was putting crowns on young Latinas, letting them know that they're valuable, they're amazing. And now we just got a grant from the Obama Foundation, recently.
Wow.
And she has been part of that journey where we have presence in Colombia, in Belize, in Panama, Mexico, the United States. And my son has seen the evolution of company one and now company two. And now he's like, Mom, I'm going to change the paradigm in this publishing house. I'm like, wow, bring it on. He's got amazing ideas, right? But I feel most proud of that. And the other thing that I feel proud of that I have such a privilege, really, is to uncover, discover, reveal, document, encapsulate, package beautiful stories from women, particularly women around the world that truly inspire me. They're the real heroes. I mean, they wake up every day and they don't give up. And they say, one more action today for my family, for my community, for my business. And I admire that resiliency. And I feel proud of having created a platform that not only integrates with different verticals, but integrates with adversity, integrates with legacy, with purpose, with impact. And then I sit back and say, wow, this is not even a universe of stories. This is like a metaverse because all the hundreds of anthologies that I have published, some of them are 10 authors and some of them are 100 authors each. So I cannot even measure on any given day, but I don't need to measure. All I need to do is I need to continue to say yes to my mission and surrender and do what I do every day. And that I know that compound effect is going to continue to create a beautiful impact.
You're going to make me cry because everything you've said really has touched the lives of so many women who sometimes are very quiet about their story. You don't know how they achieved the success they did because there's always a backstory on how they got there, right? And I've read so many of the books that you have published and been able to put in front of us. And I'm always in awe of, like you said, and inspired by women who have really dealt with difficult scenarios in their lives and have overcome. So, again, thank you for that, Jackie. One thing you shared, that you are a two-time cancer survivor, and I think, you said already that that gave you like a sense of urgency that you needed to do something right away. And I think too many people wait. They wait for the right moment. And what did that experience teach you about not waiting? And what can you also teach others about doing the same?
You know what? One thing that has been the biggest lesson for me is anticipating greatness, anticipating a vision that is bigger than any situation that you're experiencing. Give you an example. When I was in that hospital bed with, at that point, a 5-month-old baby, my son, I was about to graduate college, and I was also starting my company, my marketing agency. My biggest dream had been to be an entrepreneur in the land of dreams. And I worked really hard to manifest that at 23. And so I was just beginning. And the doctor walks in. I did notice that the surgery wasn't really how he described it to me, because it seemed like it was probably a little bit more intense. Originally, it was going to be an endoscopic surgery. And then I had tubes everywhere. So he walks in and he says, "Jackie, you're lucky to be alive. What we found by your liver was very serious, and you could have died in a week, in a month, in a year, you without even knowing why, because it would have been propagated through the bile and all that." And he's like, "But you're not out of the woodwork. We had to reconstruct the entire digestive system, and you might die in the next 2 weeks, or you might be fed out of a tube for the rest of your life." I had a tube that was connected to my liver with a kind of a silicone bag, kind of weird thing. I mean, I've never experienced anything like this. And when he said those words, I said, "I just have one question." And he said, "Sure." I said, "Can you let me go out by next Thursday between 8:30 and 8:45? It'll give me enough time to get home, take a shower, get ready, because I have finals and I'm graduating with honors." That vision of something that was greater allowed me to overcome every single obstacle in my way and create a bigger vision. And this book called Men's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is one of the most sold books in the world, sold over 30 million copies. And it talks about the premise of creating a vision that is bigger than anything you're experiencing right now. And that purpose is the driving force that allows you to manifest it and overcome every obstacle on your way. I showed up, did my finals, had a long jacket. Nobody knew that in that very exact moment I was fighting for my life, because I never spoke about it. I never uttered a word. When they said, "Where have you been?" I said, "Well, I've been busy, with my business. Starting my company. I've been really busy. My son, great." Nobody knew. I didn't want to burden anybody with that. But afterwards, I learned the importance of opening up your story, because for me, that was like, okay, it's part of the past. I don't want to share. I don't want to talk about it, right? I want to move on. But when people started saying, "No, but that's what makes it so amazing that you've overcome this." And if you were to ask my mom, like, "Why are you successful?" Because I'm disciplined and I never give up, and I have a unique ability to overcome adversity. It's become like a muscle, from overcoming poverty, cancer, stigmas, all kinds of stuff. Like, I feel like I'm activated with adversity. And that's, I think that, something that just keeps me going.
Well, I mean, again, so, like I said, when I heard your story, at the event, I knew you had to be on this show because there are so many people that stop and become victims instead of saying, "I'm not going to be a victim. I'm moving forward and I'm going to dream bigger than I've ever dreamed. And I know that I can achieve it by doing that." And I love that book. I had not heard it, so I'm definitely going to have to read it. And one thing that I also love about your story is that you just don't stay in one lane. Here's, you've accomplished this, you've done this, you've graduated with honors, you have a baby, you're starting a business, but then you decide that you're going to be a pilot. So, so you're one of those first Latina sports airplane pilots, but that's not enough. Then you decide that, you know what? There are probably other women pilots. So I'm gonna do and find who they are, and then you curate this museum dedicated to Latina pilots, the first of its kind. So let's talk about that. When you saw, that come to life, what did that moment represent for you and to the many, many women that you have spotlighted in that museum?
You know what is fascinating because the first time that I decided to become a pilot was my husband was actually thinking about doing that, and we were racing cars on the track, and that was like our sports, our hobby. And then one time we took a discovery flight, and very tiny plane, no doors on the plane. And I was like, I had this moment. I'm like, I think I'm closer to God. Like, I could probably, from everything I've experienced, like if I have a prayer, it'll get there quicker, 3,250 feet deeper. So it was kind of a mission eventually that chose me, but I had no idea how difficult it was going to be. But again, once I saw myself as a pilot, many people that begin that journey never finish. For me, it's a hobby. I'm not a commercial pilot. I fly, sports and, private airplanes. And, which makes it very unusual, right? Because you typically go for a career. But it was like I had two babies, businesses, and I'm like here, my free time going to the airport and landing 20 times. But it took me 9 months, once I kind of converged, this idea of storytelling, the idea of aviation that kind of changed my life in so many beautiful ways. And it impacted the way that I think on the earth, how to be objective, how to be present, how to make an impact, how to zoom in and out, how to be present 1,000% and see 20 things happening at the same time to save my life, to save, most importantly, the life of my passengers. So that responsibility and over, close to 500 landings that I've had and over 100 passengers that I've taken up in the air, across the Midwest and everywhere else, for me, it was like, how do I find more people that look like me? Because I didn't go into aviation thinking I'm one of the few Latinas. Like I never thought about that. What I thought about was effectiveness, precision, in landing the plane. The plane has no idea that I'm Latina, that I need two cushions and three on the back to be able to see over the cockpit, to be able to fly the plane. The
Right.
plane knows angle of attack. It knows, all of that. So once I mastered that, and I got my license, I'm like, oh, I'm a pilotina, right? Now I'm a Latino. Like, and then I'm like, where are the other pilotinas in the world? Like, I need to find them. It took me 9 months to find them through my extensive network to find 22 women. I published this in 2020. We had over 16,000 people that attended our virtual launch because it was in the middle of the pandemic. Then I'm like, I'm onto something here. Then one thing led to the next.
Oh, we
Now
lost
we
you.
have,
We lost your voice.
oh,
Did you get muted?
no. Can you hear me?
Can you
I
can you hear?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you.
No.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
Okay, perfect. So now with Latinas in Aviation, we have 5 volumes, a waiting list. We have basically everybody for volume 6 that will be published in 2026, and we have a waiting list for 2027. Out of all these amazing authors, 116 for 5 volumes, many of them have donated artifacts to create the first exhibit for Latinas in aviation in the world in over 100 years of aviation. And not only that, but I also provided the funds for a second permanent exhibit in Kansas, which is the air capital of the world. This is where they manufacture many of the planes that you see flying today. They come from Wichita, Kansas. And so we have a museum exhibit there that was just revealed last year. So there's
This
two
is
permanent exhibits.
amazing, amazing to all that circling to a museum that is a permanent
Mhm.
historical, event, right? That everyone will their legacies. And I know when you shared the photos with me, I was so taken aback about the people cry, the women that were crying to see themselves, featured in the museum. So I think that's an incredible, incredible achievement and something I know you have to be extremely proud of in being able to provide such exposure for women who are doing something that is so incredibly unique because it is something you have to study and dare. I mean, you got to be a risk taker, all that rolled into one. So one of the things that I think you've also have been able to impact. You've created this, through your storytelling. And you talked about all the books that you've published, the authors that you've been able to gather across the different countries that you've been able to, work on. And why do the stories that you are talking about matter so much? And what happens when people finally see themselves reflected in those stories that they are able to write?
Yeah, I mean, the aha moments. I mean, even like I think of the first autograph. I actually do an entire like, mini training session and deciding what the autograph will be for each individual author, where they think about the essence of their story, the essence of their being, who they are in that moment, and how they want to extend their soul, right? Like my German teacher said. So thinking about what is that phrase that is going to make you be recognized, as you anchor your story and as you hold that book in your hands for the first time, how are you going to autograph that book? A lot of people don't think about that, but that is a huge milestone. And I cannot tell you, I mean, even for me, my own journey as an author, like I could write another 100, 300 books. And every single time that I hold that book in my hands and it says not for sale around it, and I hold it and it's months or sometimes years of writing and extending my soul and putting together and, all of that, and holding it, it never gets old. So I get to witness not only my own journey as an author, and walk the walk, but also seeing the first autograph, the first time they hold their hands, hugging each other, crying, thinking, or sometimes sharing that with their families. Oh my God, that is one of the most
It
beautiful
is
moments.
really so powerful.
Wow,
Yeah, it
magical.
really is because I witnessed it and how people are so proud. And call out to Maggie Matthews, I know who did the Latinas volumes 1 through 3, and then Magda Sola is how I met you. So we gotta give our shout out to Magda because all, every little piece that they wrote in these books is a piece of themselves and a story that has to be told, right?
Mm,
And how powerful it has been to be able to experience someone's life
mm,
or a segment of it in the stories that they've been able to write. So again, you've done so much to elevate voices. One thing that I always want to know is every person, everyone has someone who has helped shape their belief in what's possible. So I know you talked about your German teacher, but who else inspired you early on to believe that your voice and the voices of others really truly mattered?
my mother. I mean, without her having this richness in intellectual property, books, everything she surrounded me with from, motivational perspective and just seeing that we had a beautiful bookshelf with the Encyclopedia Britannica, like the English encyclopedia, I mean, I used to devour those volumes. And then of course all these other books that I mentioned. I mean, without her impetus and her, she's like, I used to tell my mom, like, Mom, I have something here. I want to change the world. And she's like, I don't know if there's medicine for that. Because you know what? That burning desire, that I like that, fire in my chest to like, change the world, it came really from reading those books that she exposed me to, and that created this like purpose for me. And when I was working on my memoir, when I was 31 years old and I was interviewing my family, I discovered so many things about my childhood and just what a blessing, that my life has been really, for like like how many struggles and stuff that I had no idea, right? And my mom kind of like awakened me to some of those episodes. And she's like, I finally know what that is. That thing that you were feeling when you were a little girl. And I'm like, tell me, Mom, tell me. She's like, love. I have seen your love for people, for your family, for things that you do, the passion that you give, your clients, like that's love. That firing thing, it's love. And I'm like, is it? Oh my God, I finally had an answer at 31 years old.
Oh, I love it, love it, love it. Well, what did your mom do? Because, to have all those books, you know what I mean? That's not something
She was
that
in
is,
sales her entire life.
she was in, I was gonna say,
Sales.
those
Yeah.
books are really I would say, the Bibles, and not
Yeah.
to confuse our Bible, because out of respect, but the Bible for those of us that have ever sold or have been in that industry, you have
Yeah.
to have those books as part of your
Because it keeps you
everyday reading.
motivated, right?
And
This is what
you know,
drives you.
and it's
Yeah.
what people really have accomplished right through those books
Mhm.
that work, right? So I was just wondering, like, ¿qué
And
hizo
then,
tu mamá?
yeah, ¿qué hizo mi mamá? No, and then, the thing is that when she was like super motivated, there was always this correlation because she was like, she had like seasons, she was so super motivated reading those books, and then she would like calm down. I'm like, no, one day when I grow up, I want to be motivated all the time. But she used to win contests, for trips. Like, hey, let's go to see this Les Brown and like, all these people like Zig Ziglar and all
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
So then I used to tell my mom, one day I'm going to be on that stage. Little did I know that now I've been a keynote speaker for 16 years, traveled to 4 continents, stages everywhere. It's unbelievable how that seed or that mission begins to choose you. And then as things progress and things start to manifest, like you surrender, you say yes. And here I am 16 years later as traveling the world to share what I didn't even know was a story because I'm like, I've been through hell and back. I mean, I guess that can inspire
But
somebody.
it resonates with so
Yeah.
many people that,
Um,
number one, see themselves in you. They see the
mhm.
possibilities when they hear someone that has gone through so much, has accomplished again so much, and they could be in the same shoes, right? Because they again don't know what the possibilities that are out there are. Um, Now, you've already built so much. So I have to ask this question. What's next? What's the next chapter? Because again, you're so young. What are you most excited about doing now?
You know what? One of the things that I get most excited about, and I was actually talking to one of our clients this morning, is being called a dream catcher, being the extension of the wings of my clients, my authors. Like, I love the idea of manifesting and I live for that. I really truly do. And what's really fascinating is that I've achieved, a lot of earthly, things or whatever, but I just every single day, I pray to God to give me life, to give me health, to give me energy so that I can continue to help as many people land on their dreams. And if I write one book or maybe another 100 between now and the time I die, it's fine. If I have one more condo, one more vehicle, one more, it's fine. But I'm not driven by that. I'm not driven by egos or money. I'm driven by how many people can I help today? And that compound effect of aligning with my purpose, surrendering to those missions, and saying yes, when it feels amazing, when that divine download comes to me. So that's all I ask. That's really what's next. I mean, next is living every day in purpose with the purpose aligned and the authenticity. And I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, even though I'm a pilot and I always want to have a flight plan, I haven't had a flight plan for at least a decade because I've surrendered to all these inspirations and divine downloads, and it's taking me all over the world. And I'm okay with that. As long as God gives me life, I will continue to surrender and say yes.
Well, you have faced life, you faced death in the face, and you've been able to see the other side
Mhm.
and the opportunities that you can create and the legacies you can build for others. And I want to commend you because, again, you are an inspiration to me, and I know that you're an inspiration to so many other women who see what you've done and see what you're doing and see what you are able to continue to do. So again, thank you for that. I can't believe it. We're almost done with our conversation. It's been so much fun. One of the things that I always like to do is just kind of something for fun as we kind of wind down our conversation. And so I want you to answer our fast five, the first thing that come to mind when I'm asking these quick questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So sitting by the ocean in Puerto Vallarta or soaring above it in the sky.
Soaring above it in the sky.
Wow. I like that ocean, that calmness, but you
Mhm.
like seeing it above.
Yeah, yeah.
Un cafecito or a good tequila.
Cafecito.
Okay. A book everyone should read.
Men's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Mhm.
The pilot seat or on the stage as a keynote.
Pilot Seat.
Wow. And then one word that describes the power of storytelling.
Legacy.
Beautiful. I love it. Jackie, thank you, not just for your time, but for the work you're doing, right? And all the things that really encompass the magic that you've created, the opportunities that you have offered so many others around the world. Your story is so powerful, and it's a reminder that leadership is not just about what we achieve, but it's also about what we bring with us and the stories that we help tell along the way. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for the special Women History Month edition of Diversity Matters. Please join me again on April 27th as we continue to spotlight leaders who are creating meaningful impact across our industry and communities. And today's conversation resonated with you, share it, talk about it, and most importantly, think about the story you're writing and who you're going to help along the way. Because
Mhm.
stories don't just inspire change, they create it. I'm Teresa Palacios Smith, and this is Diversity Matters. Thank you, Jackie. It was great to have you on the show.